I'm Jim Portus. I'm the Chief Executive of the Southwestern Fish Producer Organisation, which is a job that I've had for over 30 years. So I think that basically I've been around the fishing industry for a long enough period of time to know that this is probably the worst that things have ever been for the fishermen. They've had storms, hurricanes, all sorts of things thrown at them in the past, but actually coronavirus, COVID-19 is the worst that they've ever experienced in terms of the collapse of the market and the social distancing and the requirements. Because the market's collapsed in other countries such as France and Spain and Italy and China, there's nowhere to sell the fish. Even if they were out catching the fish, they wouldn't be able to sell it profitably. So they would be in dire straits. So that's the situation that they're in now has never been as bad. And of course, their resilience will be determined by how long the coronavirus goes on for, really. We've been involved with DEFRA over the last couple of months. Well, since the coronavirus started to hit the UK, we've been discussing these issues with DEFRA and how the industry is going to be affected. So I've been a part of those conversations. Over the last 4 weeks, they've all been telephone conferences, which is something new that I've had to get used to, and indeed all of my colleagues, but we are getting used to it. I've been working at home now for 4 weeks rather than going to my office in Ivy Bridge, and I certainly haven't been down to the quay for that length of time. So there's a lot of things that are antisocial about the coronavirus, keeping people apart, keeping people distant from one another, not just 2 meters apart, but hundreds of miles apart. So we're not doing those meetings in Edinburgh, in London, in Manchester, even in Plymouth. So it's a big impact on the fishing industry. Yeah. But going back to the start of it, I had. Well, the first telephone conference was in the middle of March, so more than 4 weeks ago, when we started talking about the impacts and how, first of all, the crabbers, they lost their market in China quite some time ago when China shut down. So they've been probably the longest and deepest affected of all the sectors.
And we've had a lot of more requests from shell fishermen as well when it first hit. With the bad weather and then the COVID, we've had a lot of requests from shell fishermen.
Well, that was the thing. We had those awful storms through January and February when the industry couldn't recover, as it were, from the Christmas period. Normally, they try and get to sea for a few days of the month in January, and then a few more in February. It didn't happen. It was dire straits for particularly the inshore sectors. Those small boats are always affected by tide and weather a lot more than the bigger boats. But then the shutdown of the crab market to the Far East, the whelk market to South Korea, that shut down for a while. Then the Italians, they were buying masses of cuttlefish from Brixham, as also are the French. So that market disappeared, and we were only about 2/3 of the way through the cuttlefish season. So the prices started going down. The buyers were able to freeze that product. So hopefully it is there to be bought later on and not too far into the summer. The problem is when you put a lot of fish into freezer capacity, it has to come out to supply the consumer eventually. And if you're then competing with a fresh market, you can keep the prices depressed for that much longer than you'd really like to. So it was good that we had the full cuttlefish season and that product was sold, but as I say, the prices were falling. Then we had the scallop sector. A lot of scallops sold into France and other continental markets. That dried up. So the scallopers have been tied up now for at least 3 weeks. And interestingly, the scheme that was announced last night from DEFRA has an upper limit of 24 meters. Quite a lot of those scalloping vessels are bigger than 24 meters. So they don't qualify for this support. They should get it because they've got the same overheads, the same fixed costs, the same bank loans the same difficulties of marketing. So tying up those boats impacts the crew. They all get sent ashore. They've got nothing to rely on except the self-employed schemes, which they may not qualify for, because when they're working, they're probably earning more than the upper limit of that particular scheme. So this is where the Fisherman's Mission and other other charities like Seafarers UK, Sail, there's a network of support there that is for fishermen and other mariners. There's going to be desperation, because
I think it's moving on, isn't it? It's next 2 months, it's in 3 months as well, that I think we're going to be getting a lot more requests for help as the bills start coming in and it really starts to bite.
Well, that's right. It may be that fishermen, as indeed the general population, they've got rates holidays and perhaps rent holidays and mortgage payment holidays, but all of those things have to be paid for ultimately. And I can see that even if the restrictions are lifted in the summer, we will have lost several months of production, and then because of the quotas are for the 12 calendar months, so fishermen will be fishing against those quotas up until December the 31st. They won't be able to catch them, all of those quotas, and then they're gone, they're wasted. You can carry forward a limited amount, maximum 10%, but if we lose several months of production, we're never going to catch up on that. And that's real money that's being lost from the economy permanently. That's why we need not only these support mechanisms that have been announced last night, but we also need the welfare packages that are available from the Seafarers and Fishermen's Mission charities. They're going to be absolutely essential, because this is a human crisis. Of course, we know all about the National Health Service. We know that people are dying from this, and that is absolutely horrendous. I want to pay tribute, of course, to the NHS and the work that they're doing, trying to save lives. But everybody that's lost a job or is furloughed or laid off, that it's not anywhere near income as usual. A lot of those losses are much greater than the earnings than they would have been having through a 12-month period if it's all concertinaed into 6 or 7 month year. And so they've got 12 months worth of bills to pay, possibly with 7 months worth of income. Yeah,
it is scary times. It is really scary times. And obviously you're not running the London Marathon because all of our fundraising channels have really dried up. And I know this year you were running for Seafarers UK. And our fundraising, the amount we can do now is just zero because we're all working from home. So we have to work remotely with our beneficiaries and the fishermen that are phoning us up asking for help.
Helen, as you know, I've run not only the marathons but also fish stock for the Fisherman's Mission. We had 10 years of fish stock events. We took a break in 2019 for what we thought was a well-earned rest, and
now it's 2 years.
The fact that we can't have fish stock this year, and I was really hoping that we were going to have a really good year and a decent income for the Fisherman's Mission. And you're right, I chose to run this year for Seafarers UK, not because of any reason against the Fisherman's Mission. I just wanted to run the marathon, and it was the only option available to me was to do a charity place this year. Because I'm getting older and I'm not getting any wiser really, but I do like to keep running. I will be doing my bit for the Fisherman's Mission somehow this year. We were going to have we were supposed to have a fish supper in
April
in the yacht club at the beginning of April. Really sadly that we had to cancel that because of the coronavirus. We were supposed to have a summer cruise in Brixham, fish and chip supper. That's had to be cancelled. The Brix Fest event in Brixham had to be cancelled. The Pirate Festival, the dragon boat racing. All of these things have had to go, and it's really, really sad that that the community of Brixham has, nothing to celebrate or no way to celebrate. Of course, there's a huge number of charities in Torbay that are doing great things and getting out there and helping the community. There's an awful lot of people that need help at this time.
There are a hell of a lot. We've got over 1,000 people have applied for universal credit in Brixham. So that's a lot of people when I think there's 11,000 houses in Brixham. So it's a lot of families that are going to be affected, and because of the knock-on effects of the fishing industry struggling. Boats are going up for a few a day.
That's in addition to normal applications. Because
another
people have lost jobs.
Another 500 extra. Just under £1,000. 1,000 people, and then it's the 500 claimants. The last month, I think it is.
I mean, the thing is that the fishermen can get the self-employed support, but first of all, fishermen are not very good at doing paperwork, so their HMRC returns may be a little bit defective, shall we say. So they may not get the maximum benefits that are available. Some of those boats on the beam trawlers and the scallopers are earning more than the cap, and so they're not actually eligible for the self-employed benefit. So then they've got no choice but to sign on for universal credit if they're not actually going to sea. I don't know what the paperwork is like for processing their claims, but I sure hope that it's efficient and quick enough that they don't suffer anxiety. That's another thing.
It is.
The mental health that these guys must be going through is extreme. I'm on the phone to fishermen most days. They're asking how I'm getting on in my social isolation here in Liverton, but actually I feel for them. It's a very anxious time. They've got bills to pay and not much prospect of a decent income anytime soon.
Yeah, what do you think about the future at the moment, looking forward? Can you forecast how you think it's going to pan out?
Well,
do you think the fishing industry will recover?
Well, I've never known it not to in the past. As I say, we've been through storms and hurricanes and tempests and all sorts of problems. In the scallopers, they had things like paralytic shellfish poisoning, the algae blooms and things that shut down fisheries for weeks at a time. And they do recover because of their inbuilt resilience to these things. I'm quite sure that if the latest shutdown requirements for the next 3 weeks, if the general population sticks to them and we see that downturn in hospital admissions and fatalities from the coronavirus, that we will then see a gradual lifting. And the fishing industry is one of those industries that can pretty much do social distancing, not only on the quay but on board, provided the vessels are maintained in a good condition during their period of tie-up. They should be able to get back to sea and start harvesting. One of the problems is that if it's June by the time they go back to sea, that's one of the lowest production months, June and July, and going into August. We then have to wait for the upturn in productivity to the autumn. So they may well be scraping a living through the summer months. They will have done all their refits and maintenance during the period of the next few weeks of the tie-up and lay-up. So they won't be doing that at the usual time of year. It's going to be a very, very tricky year. We were looking forward to the bonuses of Brexit on the 1st of January 2021. I'm told at the moment DEFRA's got no intention of losing the timetable for change. But from a technical point of view, we should have a new fisheries agreement by the 1st of July. Here we are, middle of April. Not many weeks left, actually, to do those negotiations and create a new fisheries treaty to take effect on the 1st of January 2021.
Are you involved in those discussions?
Not directly, no. The DEFRA has got people on the Brexit team. I've taken part in Brexit talks with DEFRA. They've been superseded by the COVID-19 talks over the last month. So we haven't had a Brexit conversation for that period of time, but we were told recently that the talks are still going on, albeit in a virtual sense, the same as this conversation between you and I.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that that in itself is fraught with difficulties when you've got people whose first language is not English, and they're trying to communicate with our Brexit team and getting across the very intricacies of a new treaty. So I wouldn't be surprised ultimately if the date is extended. I'll be very disappointed. The industry is really looking forward to steaming out there on the 1st of January 2021 with the UK as an independent coastal state.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Jim. Thank you for your update on Fisherman's Mission.